Well, hello, everybody. This is Bob Van Buren. Welcome to another episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. Just a reminder that we're here once a week with the live show, but if you miss it, these shows are always archived, so you can watch them later whenever you want. Glad you're all here. We got a great episode tonight, as always, with an individual guest, so looking forward to that. Hope everyone's had a great week or month so far. I have. Recently, I went to a yard sale, a rummage sale or estate sale, if you will. And you can find just about anything you can at an estate sale or a yard sale, garage sale, what have you. And I found something, this has been actually a couple of months now. I found a book here, and what it is, it's an old college history book. The copyright is 1969, and I bought it for 50 cents. But what makes it so unique? And because today, high school students and college students, they have so much history to study in a very short amount of time. So naturally, the publishers have to shorten down some of the important events in history of the world. And so I think that's unfortunate because they might touch on it, but they don't know all the details. Well, because this textbook was written in 1969, it gives a lot more detail. And for example, our country's founding, the Constitution, George Washington, the Revolutionary War, up to and including World War II and Vietnam. Of course, now, this is 1969 at the publishing. There's nothing about the moon landing, nothing, unfortunately, about Tet Offensive Vietnam, because those things have not really happened, or at least they happened too late for the presses. So my point is, study your history, learn history. Modern history books might be fun. I'm not taking away anything from the publishers or what the students are learning today, but if you can, pick up an older history book, because it gives you a lot more detail, especially if you want interested in the country's founding, the progress throughout the Industrial Revolution, again, World War I, World War II, Korea. And so I've learned to appreciate, I appreciated history anyway, but this book has really, it's hard to put it down. And so I definitely, if you find something at a estate sale, an old history book, and if you're a history fanatic like I am, you'll really enjoy that. So that's what I've been doing. I've been reading up on history and kind of refreshing my memory on some things I didn't know. So talking about history, though, it's good to learn about your own country's history, wherever country that you're from. But I don't think we should ignore, and we shouldn't ignore, history from other parts of the world, which are just as significant, whether that be Europe, Africa, Australia, Asia, North America, South America. It's good to know kind of where we've been and where we've come from, and especially learn the lessons of the past so that we don't repeat them later. Specifically tonight, we're going to be talking about royalty. Now, I realize we talk about British royalty, and normally that's in the news, but there's also other royalty in other parts of the world. There was German royalty that many people don't even aware of. In fact, I had heard of it, but I really wasn't that aware of it until I started speaking to tonight's guest. And she has written a very interesting book about that. Let me put that on the screen for you, and we'll talk to her in just a few minutes. This book is called The Rival Courts Under His Spell. And it's going to be it's the first book in a series of books. So if you really like history like I do, especially stuff from the 1800s and early 1900s, this might be the book for you. And so it looks very interesting. I can't wait to delve into it to learn more about Frederick and Victoria was her name. They called her Vicky. And it's written by a young lady named Love Lubker. So let me bring her on now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Love Lubker, and she's going to talk to more about her book and educate not only you, but me. I need the education too, to talk about Frederick and Victoria. Love, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, look at her outfit. That is a costume or dress that Victoria herself, Princess Royal, would have worn. So, I mean, that's definitely in character. So That's very nice, love. Thank you very much. So let's talk more about let's talk about the characters in your book. We'll start with Frederick. What can you tell us about Frederick, who he was and what kind of person he was?
Yeah. Frederick he becomes Emperor Friedrich III of Germany, or German Emperor. There was one of the political things about the title. People say Emperor of Germany, but that wasn't correct, and there was actually, Germany was lots of different states.
Oh, it was different states?
And the other states objected to, the Prussians were the family he was from, but the other states objected to the title Emperor of Germany because it gave them a territorial claim, whereas German Emperor just as an over higher sovereign, not an actual territorial claim. And you were talking about American history and the Civil War, and there was actually a civil war in Germany also in the 1860s, and it says the war with the states then.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
But Fritz, that's what he went by. Fritz he becomes the emperor 27 years after the time period of the end of my first book. But
I was going to ask you something. You just said something I'm interested in. You said that a lot of people back then didn't like him to have the title of emperor. Why didn't they like emperor?
It wasn't that. It was Emperor of Germany rather than German Emperor, just the language meaning in German.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
It gave them a territorial claim versus just, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but the language nuances in German.
Okay, well, that's one character. Naturally. Oh, go ahead. What'd you say?
Prussia was the big state in Germany that was trying to gain power and stuff, but he's a very peaceful character where Prussia was a military state and stuff, but he's very different. And
kind of peculiar in some of his ways.
Was considered peculiar by the others. But he's just very peaceful, wanted to unite Germany peacefully, not through war and stuff.
So he was a peacemaker.
Yes.
He did it through peace.
And Frederick means peaceful ruler.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Fred means peace, and Reich is empire, Reich is ruler.
Okay. Well, of course, now this guy here that you're seeing ladies and gentlemen, he's not the only character in Love's book. So let me bring up the other person that is mentioned in her book. So, Love, tell us about this person.
Vicky is Queen Victoria's eldest daughter. So when she's born, she's the heir to the throne because England didn't have the male succession. So if she hadn't had a brother, she would have been Queen of England. But Queen Victoria has 9 children, 4 sons, so she's definitely not the heir later. But she would have made a good queen. She's like just interested in everything. She was
absolutely
into art and music and all the accomplishments of the time, but also chemistry and higher mathematics and stuff like that. The women often weren't taught in that time, and just like people called her the best statesman of the country and stuff.
So let me ask you. So this lady we're looking at here, Victoria, which they also called Vicky, by the way, correct?
Yes.
So she was actually British royalty, but she married into German royalty. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow. So she, like you just said, she kind of gave up her title or gave up her chance of being the Queen of England.
Her English title was Princess Royal, that was given titles to the eldest daughter. But since she has 4 brothers, the boys came first in succession in that time. So in Germany, the women couldn't be the sovereign at all. England was England, and the Netherlands and Spain and a few countries did allow the female sovereigns in that time, but not very many.
She's very attractive. As a matter of fact, I have another picture here I'll show you, love, and I'll show my audience. Here's a painting of her when she was just a little girl. So she kind of had a lap of luxury when she was still living in England.
Yeah, she is the eldest daughter of the Queen. Her father, Prince Albert, she was his favorite, basically, and just he trained her. He was friends with Frederick's mother. Frederick's mother's younger brother had gone to college with Albert and his brother and were close then. And she came from the German state, Saxe, Weimar, Eisenach. That was the first German state to have a constitutional government in Germany. And she was for that and stuff, where Prussia was they called themselves conservative, and very military and stuff. So yeah. She's kind of an outsider in the family, but.
No, I did read that, love. I remember reading, after we talked, I kind of did my own research, and I heard that in the British royal family at the time, they were very, very extremely conservative, whereas the German was more liberal. Or was it the opposite? Was it German conservative and England liberal?
The conservatives and liberal having a different meaning in Germany than in England then. Just the party that called themselves long-term conservatives were
Well, let me ask you, love. I'm just kind of interested myself. You've kind of drawn an interest in me on this, because I really didn't know much about Frederick and Victoria. So let me ask you, how long have you been interested in Victoria and Frederick, and how long have you been doing your research?
I've been reading about the Victorian era royals for about 7.5 years now. And Victorian era, I did the literary world, the Bronte sisters, the authors of Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights and those books. Before that, for 3 years. So I've done the Victorian era for 10 years, and it's been 5 years since I first read Vicky's letters, correspondence with her mother, Queen Victoria, and I'm reading it again for the 4th time now. But it's like 7 books, plus I've gathered letters from other biographies and stuff and assembled them to read with the rest of the letters.
But you bring up a good point, Love, and I'll tell my audience this. This is something else I didn't know until I talked to Love, ladies and gentlemen. Love, the reason we know so much about Victoria is because her letters and her diaries were saved, and there's many, many of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's like 8,000 letters between
Oh,
Queen
wow.
Victoria and Vicky, and 10,000 between Vicky and Frederick.
Wow. But now, are they all written in German or are they written in English?
Her letters to Mother are mostly in English, but with Fritz in German.
Now, I understand that you actually are learning German, or that you know German, or you're studying German now.
Yes.
How's that going? I feel like that would be hard. Is that a pretty hard language to learn?
I spend a lot of time on it. But I took a basic course of German, like, how long is it now? Like 13 years ago or something. But the last 3 years is when I'm really learning to read it more thoroughly and for my research.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I should learn a foreign language. I'm talking about myself too. So, maybe I need to start studying a little bit better and, learn a little bit more. um, the letters, let's go back to the letters, the ones that Victoria wrote. Who were the letters to? Who was she writing to? Was it just one person or different people?
I said there's a books, several volumes of letters, correspondence with her mother, Queen Victoria. So, Vicky and Queen Victoria's letters to each other, and then the letters between Vicky and Fritz are more scattered through biographies. There's no actual volume of their letters.
And I'm going to show you something else here. Here's another picture, ladies and gentlemen, that I downloaded that I'm sure Love's book covers. She can probably tell you a lot more than I can. This is a picture, actually, it's a drawing of Victoria's wedding when she married Frederick. And I mean, that's really interesting. That was did she get married, Love? Did she get married in England or did she get married in Germany?
In England.
It was in England?
Yes.
So did they want to get married in Germany or did
No.
somebody? No, nobody ever did. Okay.
The Prussian family wanted them to get married in Germany, but they wanted it to be in England.
Okay. Very interesting. That's interesting. Did the families get along or was there ever conflict? In other words, did her family and his family get along or was there ever a conflict between the families?
Yeah, there was conflict, but between different parts of the families, so.
Okay.
It's another. So I said Fritz's mother and Vicky's father were close earlier. Their families were close and shared their political ideals and stuff. And his father, so his parents are Wilhelm I and Augusta Saxe-Weimar Eisenach, and the German states. There's a bunch of little states that are on Saxe something, but Prince Albert's from Saxe, Coburg Gotha. There's also the Kingdom of Saxony. The kingdom is Catholic, and the little states are the Protestant states, and Gotha, that looks like Gotha. Gotha was actually one of the places where Luther was, but the Lutheran Protestantism kind of started, but they were part of that.
That's interesting. Something else, maybe you can let our audience know. You would think that, okay, Frederick's from Germany and Victoria is from England. So how did they meet? Can you tell us how they met?
Yeah. His, Prince Albert was involved in the first uh, World's Fair, the Great Exhibition in
Okay.
1851 with the Crystal Palace. That was the
Mm-hmm.
huge glass building, and her family invited several young families with teenagers and younger children. Vicky's the oldest, and she's 10 at the time, so invited several families, but one of the other German kings, the English family was Hanover, but so the Stuarts were like 15 and 1600s, but Henry VIII is 1500s, but he's House of Stuart, and their line, Elizabeth I and stuff, their line runs out of direct heirs, and they go back through the female line to find a new heir, but goes through a line who had married into the Hanover family in Germany, and there's the four Georges. George III was the one at the Revolution, the American Revolution.
Oh,
The
wow.
Mad King George, that's Queen Victoria's grandfather.
Yeah.
And then, so there's four Georges, and then George IV marries. He's married to a Catholic girl, which is illegal in England by that time, and is deeply in debt, and they arrange for him, the government arranges for him to marry a certain princess, and he'll get an increase in income if he marries officially, and they get him to do it. He's never met her before the wedding day, and
Wow.
they get married, and
that is
he
interesting.
has a child 9 months later, but he doesn't believe it's really his, but he's drunk on the wedding day and stuff, but he can't prove it's not his. I can't remember anything from the whole wedding day.
Oh, wow.
So the girl is the heir. Her name is Charlotte, but they live separately. They each have a separate household and have the girl raised in a separate household where the mother has to get the father's permission to see her and stuff. But
wow, what an arrangement.
This is like the beginning of the 1800s. She's born in, I think, 1796. So the Napoleonic Wars, when Napoleon's trying to take over. So as she's growing up, the different armies are always coming through England, and the father, George IV, is the regent for his father, George III, the Regency era. He's not actually king yet, but he tries to get her engaged to the King of the Netherlands to have a joint monarchy.
You said the King of Netherlands?
Yeah.
Oh,
but a joint monarchy where she would be Queen of England and he'd be King of the Netherlands. But the father's plot was to get her and her mother out of the country, out of England, out of the public eye, and he marry a different princess and have a son and push her out of succession because he doesn't believe she's really his child.
Wow, what an arrangement.
She keeps breaking the engagements and getting engaged to somebody else when the different armies come through. But after Napoleon's defeated, there's the last army comes through England, and Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg asks permission of both parents and just does the right course.
Sure, yeah.
Who she does marry, and they're married, and then she dies in childbirth, and the baby's stillborn. So
oh, that's sad.
So now there's no heir again, and that makes all the brothers. George III officially has 15 children.
Wow.
They're all princes and princesses, like 7 sons. And this is linked into the part about the Great Exhibition, but it's part of the backstory of my
okay.
So there's 7 sons, so the younger ones all then find the younger princesses to marry, because they're all like in their 50s and 60s. But they all marry the younger princesses to try to have an heir. And Queen Victoria is actually the daughter of the fifth son.
Oh, the fifth son. Okay.
Yeah, but Leopold, the one who had married Princess Charlotte and she and the baby died, he gets his sister to marry one of the
oh, really? Oh, wow.
the brothers. So that's Queen Victoria's mother. Uncle Leopold is an instrumental in a lot of the story. But so he stays in England and has an income after his wife dies and stuff. And then later is elected as King of Belgium when it becomes an independent country in 1830. So, but to get back to the main story, so George IV was Charlotte's father. There was a Frederick in that family that dies before Queen Victoria is very old, but I don't really know much about him. William was the 3rd brother, and he's the next king after George IV, since he ends up not having an heir. So William's king and married to Adelaide of Meiningen, another German state. They actually have 2 daughters, but they die young. But if they had lived, they would have superseded Queen Victoria, because he's the older brother. Then the next brother is Ernst August, and he's King of Hanover, but I said they're of the Hanover line, so, well, each brother is King of England and Hanover. They are a joint monarchy.
Oh,
so
both. Okay.
When Queen Victoria becomes queen, I said the German states have the law that women can't become the sovereign, so it splits. Queen Victoria becomes Queen of England, and her uncle, the next older from her father, or no, that's not right. Edward's, okay, the next younger than her father, otherwise he'd be the heir, becomes King of Hanover, but he wants to be king of both.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what I was getting to explain who he was.
Well, that's great. I'm really impressed, because you obviously have done your research. I mean, you know so much. I'm just mesmerized listening to you, and I'm sure my audience is too, because, unfortunately, we don't hear that a lot, the history. And so it's refreshing to hear someone like you that's keeping the history alive to educate the rest of us. I mean, it just so much goes into being royalty, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
it's almost like a soap opera.
Yeah. the great exhibition, how Vicky and Fritz meet. I said the Queen and Albert invite several families with children and teenagers, but looking at Hanover, her uncle is writing letters, spreading rumors, but it's not safe to go there. The big influx of people into the exhibition will draw the revolutionaries and then blow up the glass building, or too many people and cause a plague and stuff. So he's trying to get it so the other royals wouldn't attend it. And it ends up the Prussian family is the only one with the other children that do attend it. So Fritz's family, his mother and father and sister are there. So Wilhelm the First is his father, and Augusta is his mother, and his sister's name was Louise, but they called her Vivi. I don't know why.
Who knows, right?
That exhibition, Vicky's longest of the children, and she gets to be their guide at the exhibition, even though
she's their guide.
10.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? Oh.
She's only 10. Fritz is 19, and his sister's 12. And Vicky's the oldest of her siblings, so she's 10 and he's 19, but she gets to be their guide.
Wow. A guide at that age.
Everything about it and stuff, because she's very involved with what her father does and stuff. So, but you had said, what's their conflict between the English and Prussian Fritz's family? So the Prussian family had also been involved in the Napoleonic Wars. In the Battle of Waterloo, the English and Prussians are allied when they defeat Napoleon. And Fritz's father and uncles had actually been in that battle when they're pretty young boys. Like, Wilhelm I is 14.
Oh, wow.
So, that family, so it's Wilhelm, Fritz's father is the second brother. The older brother is King, who also goes by Fritz. And then the third brother, Charles or Carl, is the villain of my story, but he's a similar figure too, looking at Hanover, sort of. But I'm planning to do another series around the Queen and Albert's story with the older generation in England that I told as the backstory. But this one I'm doing the Prussian family. But their parents were Friedrich Wilhelm III and Louise of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, and his brother marries her sister, and it's funny because their names were Frederick and Louise, and Louis and Frederica, the names first.
Oh, wow. You know, Love, I have to tell you, I'm very impressed this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe you've noticed here, Love is naming these names at the top of her head. She's not reading from a script. She knows this stuff. I mean, I'm so amazed and impressed and proud that you've done this research. So no wonder you can write a book, because I mean, you've actually done your studying. I mean, so you can just come up with names just like that. I mean, I can't hardly remember my own name sometimes. So I don't see how you keep up with all these names. So obviously you've done a lot of studying, haven't you?
Yes.
So we mentioned, you kind of touched on a little bit about when Frederick and Victoria married, they had some children. And there's a picture here I'm going to show everybody. I'll read the caption that was, it says here, the caption that I'm seeing on this picture says, Prince Frederick William of Prussia with his wife and two older children Prince William and Princess Charlotte. So you heard Love earlier talk about William and Charlotte. Well, there they are as kids there.
That was a different William and
That's what now?
A different William and Charlotte, actually.
Oh, it's not? Oh, okay.
But this is the main characters in this story, but Princess Charlotte I was talking about earlier is Queen Victoria's cousin, so Vicky's mother's cousin. The previous heir to England before Queen Victoria. So
I see.
But yeah, the names do repeat, and Vicky's daughter that's in that picture is partially named in honor of Princess Charlotte. So
well, how many kids did Frederick and Victoria have?
Just they have 8.
8? Oh wow. Yeah, like you said earlier in your conversation, they needed those heirs. They have to have heirs to the throne, right?
Yeah. But those 2 children, William and Charlotte, are the 2 that are born in my book, my first book. And Wilhelm is the one that becomes the Kaiser of World War One, so goes to war against England later. World War One. Kaiser Wilhelm in World War One is Queen Victoria's grandson.
Wow. So let's go back to Victoria. They called her Vicky, correct? Yeah. Too. Did she have a really good education? What kind of education did she have?
Yeah, I said she was educated by her father, Prince Albert, and was educated more as the heir. And that also people called her the statesman, and she was taught on the higher mathematics and chemistry and stuff like that. But women generally weren't taught in that time. And as well as she was really good artist and did the modeling clay statues and stuff. She's very interesting.
She sounds like an interesting character, really does. I mean, an interesting life. I mean, just from what I've read about her biography, she led a full life, if I can, say that. And so, okay, we talked about Victoria's kind of upbringing. Let's go to Frederick now. Can you tell us anything about Frederick's education? How he grew up as a boy?
His family Vicky's family was very close-knit. Queen Victoria and Albert were a love match, and their children, they had some squabbles, but they were really very close family. But his family, none of his parents are not a love match, and all his aunts and uncles are not married for love, so he's kind of isolated. He has one sister that's several years younger than him, and
you said a younger sister than Frederick? Okay.
And they have the thing with, in the Prussian family, the boys join the military when they're just 10, and they leave the nursery when they're 7, and his sister's 7 years younger, so doesn't really know her well growing up, and he's isolated more. And his cousins, one of his cousins, Fritz Karl, so he's called Fritz Wilhelm, Frederick Wilhelm, because his father's name is Wilhelm, and I said the next brother, the one that's like the King of Hanover in Queen Victoria's story, is Charles or Karl, but the son's also named Fritz, so he's Fritz Karl. And Wilhelm, the father, Fritz's father, had wanted to marry a girl she was a princess, but she was in a line that was not allowed to marry back into the family. I don't remember why exactly, but he wants to marry her, Eliza Radziwill, and plans to give up his claim to the throne and marry her. And Charles wants to be the king, but something happens between them, and Wilhelm does decide to marry the princess and have the heir and push Charles out of succession. But Fritz Karl was already born before that, and he's 3 when Fritz is born. So they're raised more like brothers as children. Fritz Karl is more of the bully, but when they're teenagers, it's more. But he doesn't have much of a close network as a child.
Wow. I mean, they both led. Someone like Frederick and Victoria. I mean, they both led really interesting lives. I mean, I've read their stories, and there was a lot of conflict, though. I mean, not necessarily between them. There was a lot of outside, I guess you could say, would you say outside forces that was causing them some trouble, or people even?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the figure that's the big involved in the unification of Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, like the Prime Minister or whatever. But Bismarck is who is always talked about as being behind a lot of the stuff against them. But Prince Charles is really who is, according to what I've learned in my research, and Prince Charles is somebody who's not really talked about in most books at all. Most of the books I read will just have a few little mentions, but that's one of the things that I'm researching.
I'm going to show somebody else. This is another picture of Victoria. And I mean, like I said, she's very, very nice looking. She was an attractive lady. And, like I said, she led a really full life. How old was she? You don't have to get exact, but how long did she live?
Only 60.
Over 60?
Only to be 60.
I say. But anyway, there's a lot of artists.
17 when they get married.
Well, you mentioned the name Wilhelm earlier.
Yeah.
And for people than me, like I said, I study, I should study all history, and you've taught me a lesson. I need to go back further than the 20th century. But when we hear Wilhelm, I think of World War I. Yeah. But that was not Wilhelm the First, was it?
That's Wilhelm II, Vicky's son. Wilhelm the First is Fritz's father.
Vicky's son?
Yeah.
Okay.
Their son. Their eldest son is, World War I in Germany that goes to war against England.
So, when they settled in Germany, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Did the German people, I'm talking about the people now, well, maybe not just the people, maybe like the government that was there, did they accept Victoria? Or did they treat her like an outsider, or no?
The government didn't. The people did.
The people did?
Yes.
Okay.
The government, during the time of my story, it covers the first 4 years of their marriage in this first book. There is a change of government shortly after they're there that is the party they support, and stuff, but the next book it changes back to the other side. So.
Okay. Well, you mentioned your book, and we've kind of told the audience a little bit more about Frederick and Victoria. And let's kind of talk about your book. Now, of course, we're not going to give any, points away for anybody, but if you could just kind of give us a summary without giving us key points, how would you describe it? Your book.
I'm telling it more from his side, Fritz's side of the story. I have his perspective, which I haven't seen anywhere else in other stories about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell his childhood and their courtship and the first 4 years of their marriage and some of the other side of the political side. But I got my first review on a book blog last week.
Oh, really?
It got a really good summary of the book. It was one of the links I sent you, I think. The vincereview.blogspot.com. But it's currently for the top post on there, but
you said something I'm interested in. You said the book is written more like Frederick's point of view, like Frederick, what he's thinking, and
parts
what he
of it, I go back and forth, but I start it more from his perspective and have
I see.
his perspective on through it. But I have it go back and forth, but yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know this book that Love has here is available now. And we'll post her website here on this show here in a second. But I want to point out, ladies and gentlemen, this is not going to be the only book. As I said in the beginning of this show, this is only book 1 of the series. So let me bring that photo up and tell you, if you like that book, this is what's coming, ladies and gentlemen. Love is going to be writing all of these books. I mean, every one of them I'm just intrigued looking at the jacket. So what time period, Love, does this take place? I mean, is there like 1850 to 1890 or 1840 to 1910? What would you say the time period is here?
The main body of the story is 1840 to 1900 or so, but also have some of the prologues of some of the books go back to the early 1800s with the older generation of the Prussian family when they're young. So most of the 1800s is covered, including that. But 1840 to 1900, 1901 is Vicky's lifetime, and that is the main body of my stories.
Wow. I mean, I can't wait for you to finish them all. Don't rush now, but just a lot of us will be looking forward to seeing these. So I think I asked you earlier, but let's just make sure that everybody knows if they're interested. Let's go to this first book here again, the one that's available now. If they want this book, where would you say they would need to go?
therivalcourts.com.
Okay. And do you have your own website as well?
That is
okay. Yeah. Is it what you say? Loveloopker.com?
Therivalcourts.com.
Oh, therivalcourts.com. Okay, did y'all hear that? Everybody, rivalcourts.com if you'd like to buy Love's very interesting book. I mean, you've done your research, Love. I mean, you've outdone us all as far as your research goes. And it's very interesting to hear about these interesting people's lives. And especially you touched on something earlier I was interested in. And not just Frederick and Victoria, but I guess all royal families. And I guess that's the case today, that everybody wants the heir to the throne, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
Now, back in the day of Frederick and Victoria, love, now I've heard this. Maybe you can tell me if this is true or not. It might be true now, but we're talking back then in Frederick and Victoria's day. Did the royal families prefer a male heir to the throne, or did it matter if it was male or female?
In England, if there was a girl born, she was the heir if she didn't have a brother. And even if, like, there's a bunch of brothers, I said in the English succession, if the oldest one has a girl, she's still the heir, even if the younger brothers have boys. But if she has a brother, then the brother is there. But, yeah. In Germany, it was definitely the male heir. The women couldn't even be the regent for the sovereign.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. So they preferred the male heir, or actually that was required, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Spain and the Netherlands also had reigning queens in the time I read about. And how now in England they've changed it so the girl is the next in succession.
Mm-hmm.
It's in succession in order of siblings. If more than one sibling becomes a sovereign. So they have changed that, but not until there was a boy born first of William and Kate's children. There's the boy and then the girl, but they have changed the law, so if the oldest boy died, the girl would become queen before the next boy.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow, they certainly had their rules back then. Now we still have, we hear, of course, on the news, British royalty today. Queen Elizabeth and Prince Charles, but we don't hear anything about German royalty. Is there no more German royalty?
After World War I, they were dethroned. They had to abdicate, and it became like our aristocracy instead of the royalty. The titles and names and a lot of the castles that didn't get bombed in the World Wars are still there, but yeah.
You mentioned castles. I have a picture here that I want to show everybody. This, and you might consider this better than me, love. It's a castle that Victoria lived in somewhere in Germany, and I cannot pronounce it for the life of me. So if I say it wrong, correct me. I think they called it Frederickshof. Is that I say it right?
Frederickshof.
Frederickshof. That's where Victoria lived in Germany, correct?
That's where she lived later after Fritz died. She has that place designed. Yeah, that's another thing she did. Architecture. Architecture and landscape gardening. But she had that place designed and built later after he dies. That's where she lives later.
Looks like it's still open. I see cars out in front, like you might could tour it.
It's like made into where you can stay there as a hotel, but it's like decorated with her artwork and stuff like that, I think.
Wow. That sounds like a place to stay if you're ever over in Germany.
Yeah.
So Frederickshof, is that how you said that? I want to make sure I say it right.
Frederickshof.
Frederickshof. Okay. Okay. And then Germany today. I was doing, like I said, I did research before or after our pre-interview, love, and before. Yeah. Germany today has a monument to her. I like to show everybody. They're saying this is. I'll read what it says: Monument to Victoria in the Spa Gardens in. I'm gonna say it wrong. Bad Homburg vor der Hohe. I'm not sure how to say that, but this is it. What is it?
Hohe means
okay.
high or height.
But this is a monument, ladies and gentlemen, that they've made in Germany to Victoria for her generosity and her contribution to their royal family. So I think that's a nice touch, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, love. I mean, I've been and completely enthralled. So I thank you for that. I'm looking forward to reading your book too. And like again, it just I'm so impressed that you've done your research because obviously you know the lineage and who married who and who the heirs were. So we need people like you to kind of educate us. So I mean, your efforts are truly appreciated, love.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't have any further questions, love. I mean, I think you've pretty much answered all the questions that I had. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I want to promote her book because this sounds so interesting, and I cannot wait to jump into it myself. And so, if you're a history buff like me, this might be the book for you. And just keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, this is not, you read this book, it's not a one-off, it's not over. You're going to have this entire set as they're written. And so if you're interested in the royal families of the 19th century, specifically Frederick and Victoria, these just might be the books for you. So make sure you check out the website, let's pull it back up, therivalcourts.com, and you'll find Love's book right there. So,
And it's good to read the first book more than once because it has some things that are layered, that are things that are explained and more that you understand on subsequent reading.
That's perfect. Well, love, I appreciate you being on the show this evening. I've learned a lot. I know my audience who watches this and will watch it will learn a lot. So good luck on your future books and your sales. And I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a great evening, love. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for tonight's episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Just a reminder, I'm on the air once a week. So if you hit that subscribe button, you'll be getting some alerts. And again, I always have a new individual guest, a new subject. So make sure you tune in and like and subscribe if you can. Love to see more of you, and maybe we'll learn something along the way too. So again, this is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Have a great evening, everybody. Good night.